I read very slowly.
Just said that, Aaron just wanted to make like 15-minute thing. You can if you'd like. Okay. No, Brandon will sit with you.
There was a resolution in my email.
Does it reflect 25 or 15%?
Kelly Moorhead did it.
Make sure I don't miss that.
What's that? This is the one you push the shutter.
Is that it right there?
When you push it, it shuts.
When you push it, it shuts it off. Green means it's live. When you
Yeah,
push it,
okay, got it.
that goes off.
Okay.
Okay.
You have to hold
25%. Okay. Make sure I don't miss that on the, adding on the agenda.
I lift it up,
Okay.
Mark Franco can hear me.
Yes, we have it. Gene got it.
Thanks, Gene.
Yep. Gene got it. Okay. Everybody stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. This is me here. All right. I need to open the meeting, right? All right, I'd like to propose a motion to open the meeting.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Just want to let you know that I think this is our second. Our first one was on June 21st, but our meetings are now being live streamed. That's the zoning board, the planning board, the ethics board when it meets, as well as the village business meeting. So keep in mind, the mics are up here. The mics are here for public consumption, and there's a mic on the attorney for the village's table, but things that you say in the back of the room can be picked up, and people are going to be listening and watching on our Facebook page or on the village website link, okay? All right. First, we have 3 public hearings tonight. The first is going to be on a local law to establish regulations for the short-term rental of residential dwellings. Now, some of you are probably thinking we've been battering this thing around for quite some time, and I had a number of conversations with the attorney for the village as well as my fellow trustees, and I think Trustee Brain nailed it in my haste to want us to get something up. It's better that we get it right than get something up and then have to make major changes to it. So, for tonight, I am going to
You can just make a motion to open the public hearing.
okay.
Yeah.
Do I need to do the proof of notice? No? Okay. All right, I'm going to make a motion to open a public hearing to establish the regulations for the short-term rental of residential dwellings. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right. So there've been a number of revisions that have been made to this law, again, in an attempt to get this one right. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to anybody who would like to make any public comment here. When you do so, we're going to ask you to move up to the podium over here and just state your name and your address. Anybody wishing to weigh in on the short-term rental law? Okay. That law is also on the village website if you want to take a look at it. It has been before our planning board. The board has gone back and forth with it. We have considered a number of oral comments, a number of written comments submitted to the board. We're going to get this right. We anticipate before our August 16th meeting, Counselor, to get this to the county for review so that we'll have something to hopefully become law by August 16th, our next meeting, correct?
The county does need at least 30 days from the time of the referral. We'll shoot for the August date, see if we can do that.
If we can, it would be pushed to September.
Correct.
Okay. All right. All right, no comments, I'm going to close it. Then I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing related to the short-term rental law. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, can I go ahead and move to? Public hearing number 2 is a local law amending Charter 155-48 entitled "No Parking at Any Time" to designate a no parking area on Wilson Road within the village of Cornwall on Hudson. The location is Wilson Road on the east side of the road from Hudson Street north 100 feet. All of the text of this will be contained in Chapter 155-48 and shall continue in full force and effect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and already opened it up. Open.
You have to open it.
I'm going to go ahead and open up for public comment. Anybody wishing to weigh in on a no parking sign on Wilson Road? Sir,
Make a motion to open the public hearing?
I'm going to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone wishing to give any public comment in regards to the no parking sign on Wilson Road? Yes, ma'am.
Barbara got a step. Oops, okay. Just a quick question. I rarely see anybody park there. So has that been a parking problem?
According to, when there was when the previous business was there, Charlie Moore in particular was having people parking across, and he actually backed into one, or one of his relatives did. So there were people, when the business got busy,
Yeah.
they were parking on his side of the street, so it was making it difficult for him to get out of his driveway.
You mean scat, I guess.
No, it's further down. No, when the old businesses were actually open at what is now the Las Margaritas.
Las Margaritas.
Oh, the
Oh,
The
you
restaurant.
Mexican
were think-
restaurant.
Yeah, the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah,
Previously, when it was open,
yeah.
there were people were parking right on Wilson Road there, and it was making it difficult for him to
Just
pull out.
narrowing it down.
Yes.
Okay, just interested. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Okay. All right, if not, then I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Now I can move on to the third. All right. The third and final public hearing is on a local law amending Chapter 56 of the Village Code, modifying the composition and terms of the Board of Fire Commissioners of the Village of Cornwall on Hudson. This is a local law enacted pursuant to Article 10 of the Village Law and Article 2 of the Municipal Home Rule Law for the purpose of modifying the composition and terms of the Board of Fire Commissioners for the Village of COH. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to open the public hearing. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If anybody would like to step forward and weigh in, or Counselor, do you want to go ahead and give a short, why don't you give a short brief on what we're looking to do here?
Sure. Last year, we had adopted a local law that created the Board of Fire Commissioners. At the time, it had a slightly different composition, and that's been a matter that's been discussed and bandied about for quite a while. So what this local law does, it leaves the Board of Commissioners in place, and it simply changes and clarifies the terms. The terms of office under state law, well, it must be staggered terms of office. And under state law, the commission has to have at least 3 parties. So what this law does is it clarifies the prior law by saying each commissioner will have a term of 3 years. But in order to stagger the terms, we'll phase in the board. So for instance, the first appointment will go from the date of appointment until the next reorganization meeting. The second appointment will go from the date of appointment until the second reorganizational meeting. The third appointment will run until the third reorganizational meeting in 24. And at that time, each term will then be for 3 years, and the board will appoint or reappoint one member to the commission each and every year. The other thing that this local law does is it provides some clarification as to who may or may not sit on the board. There were some prohibitions. There was a designation of one village board member previously. There was, and potentially the mayor may have had a spot. So what this local law does, it simply says the board can choose someone with the proper qualifications in firefighting, finance, management, leadership, whatever qualities the board believes are required for members to sit on the board. So it's completely up to the board who they appoint without any restrictions.
Okay, thank you. All right, any public comment in regards to the Board of Fire Commissioners? Okay, hearing no further comment, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. May I get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So if the board is ready to adopt any of the local laws, you're going to want to do resolutions of adoption on them. So I'm suggesting maybe the parking and
And
the
that.
fire commission.
Okay, got it. Okay, so in regard to the 3 public hearings, the board is, as I understand it, prepared to move forward on the stop sign on Wilson Road, as well as the composition of the Board of Fire Commissioners. So I'm going to propose a motion for a stop sign to be placed. I'm sorry, no parking sign placed 100 feet from Hudson Street on Wilson Road. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, further discussion.
You're going to adopt it as a local law and maybe 3.
It's got to be 3 because that one, right. All right, so since the law is ready to be adopted tonight, I'm going to propose a resolution. It'll be introduced as number 3 in regards to a no parking sign on Wilson Road, 100 feet from the corner of Wilson and Hudson Street. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I had prepared a resolution to adopt the local law, and it's the standard language. It's in your packet. So the board is determining that after public hearing, there are no adverse environmental impacts pursuant to SECRA. The board's going to issue a negative declaration after reviewing the EAF and listening to public comment. And then the board will determine to adopt the law as finally presented. That's essentially the motion, or as per document.
As per document. All right. I already had a second. No further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Okay, and local law number 4, which is going to be a resolution of the village board to adopt a local law amending the Village of Cornwall and Hudson Board of Commissioners. Should I read this or no? No.
Just saying.
As per document, I'm going to propose a resolution that the village board shall adopt the composition as per document. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so all 3 of those public hearings have been closed. Now we will have public comment on any topic or any issue. We just ask the same, that you please step forward to the podium, give your name and your address. Anybody interested? Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Gazda.
Barbara Gazda, 19 Homeland. I'm here to speak to you about a community project. In the spring, as I walked past the bandstand, I noticed how beautiful the daffodils were. The garden club had done a spectacular job, and they were just really, they were very striking. So I thought, why can't we have more? So I've talked to some people, and I've done some research, and I can tell you that daffodils are perennials, they're deer resistant, and they multiply. They need about 6 hours of sunlight, and they're hardy and salt tolerant. So I thought about what I could do with this. And I found out that they come in basically 12 centimeter sizes and a 14 to 16 centimeter size. And Devitt's came very highly recommended to me. So I went to Devitt's and I talked to them. And they gave me some bulk prices for daffodils. And they suggested a Carlton daffodil, which is like a 5-inch flower, which is a pretty nice daffodil. So anyway, the bulk prices are 64 cents for a bulk of 75, which comes out to $48, or 250 at 49 cents, which comes out to $123.50. These are really excellent prices because I've looked online and less than 100 is like $85. So I was really very impressed with Devitt's. The daffodils will tolerate all soils. You plant them 6 inches deep, and they just die down after they bloom. And that takes a couple of weeks, and then you mow them with the lawnmower. So where do I want to plant them? They need some sun, like 6 hours. So I've walked Hudson Street, and I started up at the village sign just past the library, and I'd like to put 30 or 40 around that sign. I'd like to make it really attractive. And then as we come down, I looked at like the corner of 2nd Street, the corner of Academy, down into the village proper, the firehouse, the World War I memorial near Church Street. Payson is a great corner. Mountain is really possible to do. The Triangle Park at Bayview and Dock Hill, and the pillars at Cliffside Park. I have 1,000 bulbs donated. I'm going to donate 250. Our Mr. Mayor has very generously come on board with 250. And I have a resident who's given me 500. Very excited with this. And these are really easy to plant. You just go down through the grass. You don't have to dig anything up. You put a trowel in, you put the bulb in, and you do this in October. And come spring, like about the middle of April, they'll come up. And I've spoken to the Cornwall Garden Club, and they love the idea, and they'd like to help me with the planting, which I'm very grateful for. And I'm going to meet with them in a week or two at their regular meeting. So I'd like to put an order in by September 1st to Devitt's. And so I'm here, I'll take your questions, and what do you think?
So
Kind of a no-brainer.
I think Mrs. Gaza, who, for those of you that don't know, served as a village trustee and also served as a deputy mayor here on our village board, had approached me about this idea of something else that would draw people into the village, especially after going through a tough time with the pandemic and trying to do some things to make Cornwall a destination, much like our fireworks and the 4th of July committee does a great job with the 4th of July, and Riverfest and the Riverfest committee does a great job with that, but something along the lines of something that once a year would bring people in and would also just bring a splash of color. We talked about a number of ways about going about doing this to try to get more people involved, and we thought that the best thing to do in the beginning would be to find a couple of spots as she mentioned, that are common spots, village property, but would get a lot of eye traffic and people would pass by it, during the day. So I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm on board, and I think one way, maybe I'll put out a mayor's message next week on the village website, and I'll just encourage people that are interested to reach out to us and to get on board. And then the hope is if we do this communally the first year, the next year we'll get residents to do it. So you'll see these springing up all over
I'd
the
like it
place.
to be infectious in the community. I would really like that.
Any
And
board member? Anybody else? Anybody?
My only concern is, not even a concern, I think it's a great idea, but just thinking about the fact that there are pedestrian rights of way where the sidewalk, where the grass at the verge allows people to walk on it or a dog to walk on it. You just don't want to get the flowers getting messed up by people walking on them, so you don't want to put them where people will
it's
commonly pass around
it's
each
about
other.
a 2-week event.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they
Yeah,
come up
and
to.
it's
And,
just a few spots where that might be an
I
issue.
would be very happy to put a letter in the out, wherever, to let people know where they're planted. Just be a little bit cautious when you're out. We're gonna, if you plant 30 someplace, you're gonna get maybe, if you're lucky, you get 20 that come up. It's kind of a shot in the dark, but I'd like to give it a whirl.
Absolutely.
And like I say, see if we can make a statement.
We're on board. Thank you for bringing that to us.
thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, off and running. I can actually show you a picture if you want to see it.
Excellent.
It's a Carlton daffodil.
And you're saying after it blooms for a few weeks, then
It's
It-
because the
over.
nutrients from the leaves go back into the bulb.
and so no matter how much times they mow over, it's not going to be.
And-
Gotcha.
And one of the concerns was
Yeah, because the deer don't eat them.
they would come up before our annual mowing start later in
Ah,
the
yeah, I
spring,
didn't
so,
think of
yeah.
that.
And,
Okay.
I mean, look, they could bloom for 20 years.
Yep.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gaza.
Very much.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else in the public comment section on any topic? Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If you can just step up and state your name, sir, and your home of record.
My name is Greg Roby. I live on 95 Middle Springs Road in Cornwall. I'm also here, it's 270 Shore Road. I've spoken with the town board, and the mayor gave me some time to stay, so he's got the details. This is the Cliff Notes. The FEMA National Flood Insurance Program is rolling out a new rate program called Risk Rating 2.0. Those who have been flooded out previously and have policies will see an 18% increase. Those who have been flooded out multiple times will see a 25% per annum increase. Those who start new will hit these new rates. This is the federal government beginning to address the deficit that our flood insurance program runs at. It's been bailed out, I think, by $60 billion once by the federal government. It's currently $20 billion in the red, and that's ending. It affects 3 properties in the village: the building, the Public Works, my shop next door, and what used to be the Cornwall Press, Theater Techniques, and whatever it is now that Outfit in Texas owns it. You guys, as a village subcontractor, I don't know what the arrangement is with the town for your assessor service. The current assessor and the previous one have resist considering the impacts of these changes, of the insurance rates and how that affects the saleability of property. I am not the only one, but I'm here because I'm one of the ones, and I'm probably a poster child in the sense of early adapter. There will be other properties that will come as the rain gets harder and storms get heavier. And it is sufficient on my property to create a negative value right now of the property based on the interest, insurance rates you have to pay. You can buy more land somewhere else by a significant amount than my shop. So I have encouraged the town board to consider writing an organized write-down to begin the conversation, because it affects the village, the town, the school district, of course, the county to a certain degree too. And it really depends on whether you do it now or whether you do it later. We are right now as a community divided about this, I know that. But it's going to happen.
Sir, where do you think the division comes down?
Well, it's motivated reasoning, if you really want a simple answer, which is not simple. Those who I've talked to who are in denial because they know what needs to be done and they don't see it being done. So therefore, it can't be real. Those who feel something can be done have no idea what needs to be done. And they just want to feel like they're on the right side. So you have this amazing division among us as a polity between those who, for very good reasons, say we can't afford this. Well, let's hope for this. Let's hope for the second coming. And those who say, oh, all we got to do is a Green New Deal. And neither are right. The models we have are average models, and they leave out tipping points. And we're watching those tipping points getting passed. And what's tipped right now in terms of the policy that the town and the village are in the midst of in terms of assessables is that the insurance rates are going up. And they're going up big time. And so someone like myself, I have been 5 or 6 years trying to get the person who represents the village and assessments to just talk about this. I am going to go to the small claims court. I've changed the title of my property so that I qualify. So I don't have to do the taxatory thing, which is thousands of dollars. And I'm okay with that. I've served this community with the school district. I know what we're up against as a group. But if we are going to move forward and be the best we can be as a community, I feel it incumbent on those of you who serve us, and thank you, to begin the conversation, because it's not a popular one. You're going to get your hats handed to you.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate the conversation we shared today, and I gave you my commitment that I will speak further about this with the board. I'll educate myself on it, and I will speak with Mr. Rendazzo as well and get the take from the town on it as well, sir. All right?
I'm available. I taught earth science up. I taught science up at Storm King for a year before I got sent down the road. But I'm relatively versant in this, and if I can be of service, I'd be happy to.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Roby. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Name and residence.
Nicholas Moran, 187 Mountain Road. I'm here because I want to talk about something else that could bring people to the village of Cornwall and Hudson and help our businesses.
Let's hear
and that
it.
is not opting out of the Marijuana Regulation and Tax Act. I think it's the wrong thing to do to opt out of the law. It's been shown in other states all across the country. I have relatives living in California, which has had de facto legal marijuana since 1996, pretty much, with Prop 215. But even the governor of Washington State, Governor Inslee, was interviewed not too long ago, and they said, well, what do you think? How's your state been? And he said, if I had known what I know now, I would have been earlier a supporter of it. And I went to a conference in Seattle right as they legalized, and the district attorney was there, very much a supporter of legalizing cannabis. And that was because it's a law that was put on the books, not for scientific reasons, not for public health reasons. It was just in order to save a federal agency and because of a racist man who didn't want to lose his job. But I'm digressing a little bit on the point. The point is that there's two different points. There's the economic benefits. We've gone through COVID. We need people to come down, like our neighbors in Massachusetts and Great Barrington. Their downtown has been, very much impacted positively from their cannabis business. They've seen because people come, they spend money, they go maybe get some food. A lot of New Yorkers go there right now. But, the town has opted out, which might have even been a better place for a cannabis store, because if you really cared, you could put it on 9W. But I think, the village will make sure that it will be done right. You put it there, property values go up. They've done studies. There was actually just a study that I just saw today that was said that cities that, what was it? It was cities that, that had, well, I'll just read the quote. Home values increased $22,090 more in cities with recreational dispensaries compared to home values in cities where recreational marijuana is legal, but dispensaries are not available. And that was from research done by the Clever Real Estate company. And there was also a University of Oklahoma study that found much of the same. And these are, not only good paying jobs because there's peace labor agreements in the legislation. We have Hamptonburg medical marijuana facility. I don't know if they're union, but that was a concern by the town board in Hamptonburg, and they have a big facility there, not an issue. So I don't see much of a difference. People coming, buying their products, whether it be edibles or cannabis, and then leaving, hopefully going to one of our downtown businesses. But it's also, I think, another point is that I want to live in a future where marijuana is not a big deal. It's just a thing. You're over 21, you show your ID, you go there, you buy cannabis, you like it, you don't like it. And it's not really a forbidden fruit kind of thing. We get rid of the illicit market. We don't have, business disputes being settled with guns. And we have the tax revenue, and we have all the benefits of treating it as a public health issue if it becomes a public health issue. If somebody has a substance abuse disorder. And I know a lot of people, and we've really let down people in this country with the opioid crisis and not giving people the help that they need. Cannabis is not as serious as that, but we should be taking the tax revenue and making sure that our businesses benefit from this. This would be a positive, I think, for the benefit for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and I know this is on the agenda for later in the evening. Maybe this would be a good time, Mr. Moran brings this up to discuss this. I was actually kind of surprised. I went to the town board meeting where they had a public hearing on the MRTA. And I was kind of surprised that nobody showed up to speak about it, and the town ended up to vote to opt out. And just for folks to understand, the option to opt out gives you the option to immediately opt back in, whether you had a new board, whether you had a new mayor, or whether or not there was just a change of conscience among the politicos, you could opt back in. We have until December 31st to make a decision. We took an informal straw poll of the board. We did not vote on it because if we do vote to pass a resolution to have a law put into place to opt out. And so folks that aren't familiar with the law, what you can opt out on is we can't stop people from possessing it. They're allowed to possess a certain amount of it. We can't stop people from cultivating it. They're allowed to cultivate it with certain rules and regulations. What we can opt out on are two things. One is a dispensary, which you would think of if it was alcohol like a liquor store, and the other is an on-site consumption facility, which is like you could think of if it was involving alcohol, a bar. So those are the two things that the town has opted out of. The village is going to opt out of that with the understanding that as facts on the ground change, and you bring up a good point in regards to the monies, New York State is saying that there are $350 million in potential revenues. That revenue has to be distributed amongst 1,550 municipalities across the state. We are a tiny municipality, and it would just be an understanding of how much money in tax revenue would allow us to change our mind on that. And does anybody else on the board kind of have anything else to say about this? The reason why, and I'll close with this, the reason why we are not taking a vote on it now, as we would, is because our elections are in March, the towns are in November, so they have to give folks an opportunity to conduct a permissive referendum. Permissive referendum means that you get 20% of the registered voters, not the ones who voted in the last gubernatorial race, but who are registered during the last gubernatorial race to sign a petition to get it on the ballot. For the village, we have 2,100 registered voters. And this is kind of ironic, but the number would be 420 that it would require signatures to get it on the ballot. If we voted on it now, then that would possibly cause us to have to hold a special election, which costs money to do that, as opposed to waiting until October, November, make sure the timing is right. The village clerk and our attorney for the village will let us know when that is. We will take that vote then with the understanding that we can always opt back in a day after, a minute after passing that resolution. Am I missing anything, guys, fellow trustees?
Nope.
Okay, all right, and if you want to speak more on that, I'd love to talk to you about it more, and like I said, as we go forward, we've got a couple months before we vote, and if facts on the ground change, I don't think there is a person on this dais that would not consider it, okay? All right, any other further public comment on any other topics? Okay, all right, then I am going to move on to the minutes. I need to close that, don't we? Okay, move on to the minutes. I'm going to make a motion to accept the June 21st, 2021 business meeting minutes as presented. May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Discussion, point of discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
Minor things. Page 8 and 9, it lists 5 ayes, but there were 4 attendees in 2 spots. And then Phyllis Murphy is spelled with 1 L, not 2.
Thank you, sir. All right. Do I need to do that again, or are we good? We just make those notes? Okay. All right, I'm going to make I'm going to make another motion to accept the June 29th, 2021 special joint village board and town board meeting minutes as presented. May I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to the treasurer's report. The open utility balances report for the end of June read as follows. Village water, sewer, garbage, and penalties, $367,687.25. Town water and penalties, $302,984.42. I'm going to make a motion that warrant number 7 in the amount of $325,060.12 be authorized for payment. May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. I need to read any of these. Okay. All right, so moving on to the next. Board department reports. Let's begin with the building department. Trustee Carnwright.
Yes, Village of Cornwall and Hudson Building Department report for July 2021. Building permits issued 10. Certificates of compliance occupancy issued 9. On-site inspections 50. Violations 0. Stop work orders 0. Municipal searches 2. Solar panels 0. Fire inspections 4. Code enforcement officer met with ISO and completed survey. A report package will be generated soon. Arlene Ruggiero, Code Enforcement Department.
All right, thank you, Trustee Carnwright. Fire Department, Deputy Mayor Kane.
All right, the fire department, a report for June 2021. With respect to automatic alarms, there were 3 events, 2 staff hours, medical, another 3 events with 6 staff hours. Good intent calls, there were 2 of them. Hazardous condition, 2 events. They responded to 1 motor vehicle accident, 1 search and rescue, 1 animal rescue. They had firefighting survival training class, that was 36 hours, and meetings, 2 meetings for 24 hours, drills worth 111 hours, and work details, a total of 22 hours. So the total volunteer hours by the fire department was 245, a little bit over 245 hours. The chief notes that Lieutenant Trainer and firefighters Yang, Quinn, and Donovan completed the firefighting survival training, and Lieutenant Trainer is currently enrolled in firefighting 2, and T413 has been inspected and the necessary repairs have been completed. And they're in full compliance with the NFPA guidelines and back in service. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Police Department, Chief Dixon is unable to be here tonight. Trustee Brain is going to handle the Police Department report. Sir.
You bet. Chief Dixon sent his regrets. He has, well, so let's see, there's a couple of items of business, and then there's also the actual monthly report of events and incidents. So the chief has received a text from the provider of body cameras that we approved, and those should be able to be delivered and installed in the following week, this coming week. He's also drafted a general order pertaining to the implementation of those body cameras. That's with the board at this point, just for our response and our review and any suggestions. So we just received that today, but we'll be looking at that. And then in keeping with one of the provisions of the police reform collaborative, there was a call in there for the officers to undergo implicit bias training. And we've identified a local trainer who trains court officers in New York State to conduct that training. And so there's a resolution before us to approve that expense. I'm not sure if it's with us tonight. I'm not sure, but we'll be looking at that. And that training should happen in November. In addition, the air conditioning unit on the roof of the back of this building over the police department was faulty, and we are looking to do an interim repair and then a long-term repair as well. And we have quotes in progress for all of those repairs. In terms of events and incidents, there were no felony crimes. This is for the month of June. It's late in July right now, but since this is our July meeting, we have the June report. And in just 3 weeks, we'll have the July report at our August meeting. Misdemeanors and violations: 1 count of fraud, 1 criminal mischief, 5 criminal mischief complaints, 1 petite larceny, no misdemeanor assaults, 1 harassment or aggravated harassment, and 1 arrest for violation. I'm unsure of what violation that might have been. Vehicle and traffic: there was 1 accident, 2 property damage accidents, 24 summonses issued, 18 warnings issued, 17 parking summonses issued, 10 traffic enforcement posts, and 2 radar and speed sign posts. They assisted with 7 fire response calls, 1 domestic incident, 2 alarm response calls, 3 noise complaints, 3 suspicious person calls, 3 suspicious vehicle calls, 3 suspicious activity calls. Unsure if those were combined. 13 animal complaints, 5 assists to the town police department, 7 assists of EMS, 2 assistants of other agencies, 4 assists of other police agencies. There was 1 welfare check, 5 assistants to citizens, no calls to the DPW, and 1 assistant. They assisted the water department 1 time. And then, sorry, the columns went to the second page. There was 1 disorderly adult call, 3 disorderly juvenile calls, and that's it. Seems like a busier month to me than usual, but that was respectfully submitted by Chief Stephen E. Dixon.
Thank you, Trustee Brain. So just like with all these policies and laws, like with the short-term rental law, when it comes to the body cameras, the body-worn cameras, that is a big issue for me and a big issue for this board, that our police officers are outfitted with them. We are not going to outfit our officers with them until they have been trained in their usage and until the board has taken a look at, and our attorney for the village has taken a look at, and made sure that the general orders that we provide to our police officers are consistent with what we want here. What do I mean? Well, how do you determine when a police officer turns their body camera on? They don't sleep with them on. They don't wear them when they're going to Cumberland to grab a cup of coffee in the morning and they're talking to a clerk. There are itemized things like calls for service, traffic stops, search warrants, arrests, investigatory activities, confrontational or adversarial contacts, or at an officer's discretion. These are the types of things that we need to kind of sift through and winnow out and make sure it's consistent with our values, with police values, with the village's values, and what's going to be in the best position to protect our citizens and our police officers. So our officers will not be outfitted with their body-worn cameras until they've been trained on same and until the board does approve basically the SOP, the standard operating procedures for how these are going to be implemented. Okay? All right, moving along. Department of Public Works, monthly report. Trustee Carnwright, please.
Village of Cornwall, Hudson, Department of Public Works, June 2021. Trash collected for the month, 128.35 tons. Recycling collected for the month, 34.5 tons. Yard waste collected for the month, 80 yards. Repair and maintenance of village-owned vehicles and equipment continues. Mowing and trimming of village-owned properties. Sweeping of streets. Replace damaged and uneven sections of sidewalk from the village line to the village hall. Installed 2 new storm drains in Homeland and Polo Court to improve drainage. Note, a 2002 case loader is back in service. We'll be putting together a plan for replacement as it is a very key piece of our equipment. Dave Halverson, Superintendent of Public Works.
Thank you, trustee Carnwright. Trustee Gaylord, the Water Department report.
Water Department, Village of Cornwall and Hudson, June 2021. Monthly production, 24,390,000 gallons. Daily average, 813,000 gallons. Samples, we collected 55 samples in accordance with our approved water quality monitoring plan. Completed lead and copper annual sampling. Treatment, routine water treatment operations for the month. Startup of Black Rock plant following 7-year shutdown. Began zinc, orthophosphate introduction at well system in Black Rock plant for corrosion control. Removed backwash pump at Catskill filtration plant for replacement. Estimated replacement cost of pump is $36,000. Transmission and distribution, 120 utility markouts were completed. Water main leak repaired at Bayview Terrace, Mason Road, Chestnut Street. Service line leaks repaired at 198 Mountain Road, property owner responsibility. 15 Bar Avenue, again, property owner responsibility. Repair curb boxes at 20 Shadane Avenue, 156 Main. Painted 60 fire hydrants to date. Meters, red commercial water meters, red village residential water meters. 15 final water meter readings were completed. 12 residential water meters replaced. 4 meter transmitters replaced. 5 miscellaneous meter repairs completed. Installed new water meter pit at number 3 Stable Way. Property maintenance, routine mowing of properties, mowing of Black Rock Forest dams. Installed new fence at Riley Road property. Built new rock wall and security gate at Taylor Road Well Field. Other, M. Trainer, D. Nye, and R. Smith attended continuing education training for water operations licensing. Water Department 4th of July float essential workers received an honorable mention award. Respectfully submitted, Michael Trainer, Water Superintendent.
Excellent, thank you. Michael, anything to add to that? By the way, it is our water superintendent's 50th birthday today. He is officially a half-century old, so congratulations. All right, moving.
Day over 49.
All right, moving on to resolutions. So I'm gonna take Trustee Brain's advice again on this, and I hate tabling things and pushing them off. But in regards to the village's social media policy, our lovely village has not been in possession of a social media policy since it was incorporated in 1884. So since MySpace, I think, which was the first foray into it, began in 2003, I know because my kids were big into it, I know that we are a little late to the dance on this. We have asked our attorney for the village to review a social media policy that we believe would be fair and commensurate with village values for our employees. We are not ready tonight to pass a resolution on that. We anticipate, Counselor, tell me if I'm wrong, by August 16th, being in a position where the board could review it and potentially vote on a resolution for our employees.
Sure, I've provided my comments to the board, so you have my draft comments, and then we'll incorporate any other comments the board members may have. There shouldn't, I wouldn't think there'd be any problem adopting it in
I just have
August.
2 comments on it, Joe, and I just think that I think it includes everything. It's just that the topic headlines, like number 4 procedure, to me, it speaks of really what the communication media and what's subject to the policy. And then if you go down to letter G, that's where we start with the prohibitions. So identify that as prohibitions, because we refer to it later on and you don't know where it begins. So I think it's just simple stuff like that.
Yeah, that was provided to us by our insurance carrier.
Right.
So I didn't want to go too far and make too many changes because that's what our carrier is telling us we should adopt. But it could certainly use some
Cleaning up.
cleaning up.
All right.
Okay. Any other trustee, any other comment about the social media policy and what our plans are for a resolution on that? Okay. Moving along. Authorization for the mayor to execute a PBA collective bargaining agreement. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and read this as is. I'm going to introduce the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas on November 22nd, 2019, the Village of Cornwall and Hudson and the Village of Cornwall and Hudson Police Benevolent Association executed an MOA, or a Memorandum of Agreement, concerning the terms and conditions of employment for the village's police officers, and whereas the Village Board ratified the MOA by a resolution adopted December 17th, 2019, and whereas the parties wish to incorporate the terms of the MOA into the parties' collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, that commenced March 1st, 2018, and which terminates February 28th, 2025. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the village board hereby authorizes the mayor to execute the revised collective bargaining agreement on behalf of the village. May I propose that resolution and get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? And I'll just say, nothing in this document has changed from when it was ratified. It's just the final process of getting it signed and executed. So any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll get you the final version. I'm not sure what might be floating out from
Okay.
part, so I'll get you the final version for your signature.
Okay, sir, thank you. Okay, next item or resolution is a request to place a bench at Donahue Memorial Park. All right, and this is one of my favorite and least favorite things. So a lot of times you'll get a request or a reach out from a resident that wants to do something nice. And you automatically want to go, okay, of course. And then you try to think through things and figure out, well, if we say yes to this request, as generous and as benevolent as it is, what are we going to do about this request, and this request? So I have a request from Mrs. Virginia Borgasian, and she would like to place a bench at her own expense down at Donahue Memorial Park. And I'm looking around, I'm pretty confident everybody in this room has been down to the beautiful waterfront down there, and there are a number of benches, not the picnic tables, but the permanent benches where you pour a concrete pad and it's installed and bolted in. There's several that are very, very nice and get a lot of use down there. The question that's come before the board, you never want to say no to something like this, especially in many of these instances, people are memorializing a loved one who's passed away or doing it in a family's name or something like that is. Do we need to move to a position of coming up with something standard so that, I love trees, I'd love them planted on every square inch of village property, but is that a smart thing to do? And can we tell one person, yes, they can plant a tree in memoriam for one of their departed family members, and tell somebody else they can't, or they can do it here, but they can't do it there? So I'll open this up for board comment right now and see what your thoughts are related to this request, where we don't have an SOP, a process, or a protocol in place, and future requests. Sir. Deputy Mayor Kane.
Well, first thing is, how many, Gene, since I've been on the board, I know we've had at least one. Do you recall how
More than
many?
that.
I
How
think we
many
have 3 down there now.
since?
2? We have 2.
But
Two,
the-
okay. I
two
didn't remember
pending.
the second one. What was that, Dave?
There's at least 2 pending.
There's currently 2, with a third going to be put down
Right.
later this week. Just don't tell that person.
We also have one pending from the town, too. From the town.
From the town down at the
Yeah.
waterfront?
Yeah.
The town is gonna put one down?
Well, no, we have a
Request.
request from a deceased member of the 4th of July committee would also like to plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Well, tree, bench, I mean,
Has this come before the board, though, Dave?
no. It's come before our board. It's come before our 4th of July board. It's
Oh,
come
right, but
before
not,
us.
not the
No,
village
but
board.
we're,
Okay, so right now we have 2, one's in the hot, one's pending, one's gonna be, you're gonna be putting down in Donahue, and then we've got this one. So, and we don't have a policy. So I mean, I guess what our avenues are this, I think most of us would like to accommodate this individual and have it. And then say, okay, we have to adopt, and at this point then stop and say, we're not gonna take anymore until, we won't entertain any until we adopt the policy.
So we need to do that publicly so that people know that as of
Yeah.
this date, we're not going to accept anymore until a policy can be drafted.
Yeah, or we can accept them, but it's subject to the policy that we're going to pass.
I mean,
Otherwise, it's
we've
hold-
relied on the, Public Works, I mean, we've relied on Dave to do positioning and all that, but the object is obviously to preserve the view. So if we start, you know, Dave makes the choice of where to put it, I'm okay, but I really think we need a policy because could be about, you know, could be about just, for any reason. I mean, you know, we've had an 80th birthday request for a bench, and how many benches can we put down there? And are we gonna take a view away if we put a bench there?
Somebody
No,
did
so-
point out to me while I was standing down there at a recent event and said, what would that do to destroy the view if you had a row of benches down there? And looking at it, I could understand that. And obviously, doing it selectively, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I don't want to say no, but by the same token, we do need to move into a phase now of, we need to come up with a policy.
So I think that a reasonable group to formulate a policy to recommend to us would be the waterfront committee, at least for that area, obviously. There's other areas where we might want to consider benches or trees.
Right.
It's almost like a zoning exercise and saying, look, there's 6 places where we can have
Right.
up to 2
Right.
benches, 2 trees, and
Right.
once those slots are filled,
Right.
that's
I
village
mean,
property
and
is-
really for the good of all, I mean, you know, part of a standard, funeral is to plant a tree in someone's name. So that's becoming a lot more popular, which is good. It's not a bad thing, but, you know, request was made to put a tree next to the existing bench. So if that tree, you know, in 5 years, we know how they grow, that would definitely take away, you know, a view of the riverfront by the gazebo, and nobody wants to see that happen.
Bill, maybe dovetailing off what you said is maybe with respect to this individual's request is if we decided we would do it, then it could be subject to, okay, let the waterfront committee pick the appropriate,
With Dave.
make the
yeah.
recommendation to the board. With
I agree.
Dave, working with Dave, have the waterfront committee and Dave come to us with a recommendation of where it should be placed.
Yeah. Now, later on in the meeting, we're going to be discussing the local waterfront revitalization plan, which is a New York State grant application that the village is going to be resubmitting. And one of the things is we look at what we can do down at the waterfront. We've got composting toilets coming in. We have a grant application in for a covered pavilion, which our fingers are crossed, looks really, really good to be built down there. But also someone had mentioned, in the future, do what they've done at the United States Military Academy. You can't put a statue up for everybody. But what you could do is have a walkway that had pavers on it, and then people could buy a paver, different sizes or whatever, and get that paver engraved. And so it would just be a normal walkway made of pavers, and then as people come forward and want to do that, they would make a donation to the local waterfront revitalization project that we're spearheading, and then they could memorialize a relative that way. That may be something to do going forward.
And we have a walkway that goes to the gazebo now, which is, I actually can't picture what the surface is, but I know it's not inscribed pavers. So maybe we could.
It's McCaffrey.
I think that's
Over time,
concrete, Bill. I think
replace
it's
it
just
with-
poured concrete. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Anything else in that? So where I'm gonna take this is, I'm gonna reach out to Dave Work and to the Waterfront Committee,
Just for me, since I said it wrong, to correct the record, it's the riverfront.
Riverfront. Talk to Dave Work and see if they've got some ideas that they could get with our DPW superintendent on. I will inform this this resident that we will look into figuring out a place down there. And if we can find the space down there, we will make this one work. And then we need to do something publicly to table, or at least say to people, we're willing to accept an application, but we're not going to move on anything until the board comes up with a policy going forward. Does that sound fair? Everybody comfortable with that?
Fair enough.
Okay. Then I am going to propose a resolution that a bench in honor of Ms. Borgasian, paid for at her own expense and subject to the Riverfront Committee as well as our DPW Superintendent's guidance. It is hereby approved by the board, and we will allow her to move forward once a place has been selected. And should the board request what those plans are first before she can move forward on it? I mean, somebody could put a purple bench down there, or, I mean, we want something that's gonna be
That's why we need
consistent.
policy.
Yeah,
Subject by
Yeah,
the
acceptance
review
of
and
hers would
and
be-
acceptance. by-
subject to view and acceptance by the village board and the DPW superintendent and the Riverfront Committee. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Okay, next item, HVAC replacement, the police department. So during the hottest week of the year, the police department's air conditioner in this building went out. They were able to make some modifications. One of the vendors that came out was able to loan us a window unit to keep one end of it somewhat comfortable and accommodating. But being an old cop, I thought it was good because it gets the officers out in their cars and out on the street, seeing people and meeting people. But the chief was stuck back there, and it was kind of uncomfortable. So we ended up getting 3 quotes, 3 written estimates received to perform the work from these 3 companies: West Star Tech Services Corporation, Petro Plumbing and Heating Incorporated, and Royal Class Service. So I'm going to make a motion to enter into a contract with West Star Tech Services Corporation, we are the government, the lowest bidder, in an amount not to exceed $7,885 to reclaim, remove, and dispose of the existing unit, install a new Allied Lennox unit, perform all necessary rigging all necessary rigging transitions, start and test the new unit, and provide a factory warranty. May I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I don't mean to be nitpicky, but it wasn't a bid, right? It was below the threshold for requiring publication as a bid. So really, they're just the 3 quotes. So the village is actually accepting the lowest quote.
The lowest estimate, is that
Yeah,
fair?
because
Estimate
we,
of
we interchangeably use bid and quote, yeah, that's all.
Understood.
Yeah,
All right,
but
lesson
people
learned.
don't understand.
Quote. All right, thank you. Do I need to amend anything, or are we okay? No. All right. All right, as trustee Brain already advised during his recitation of the police department's monthly report, upon the recommendation of Chief Dixon, and obviously the Police Reform Commission, I'm going to make a motion to retain Daniel Stewart Santiago in order to conduct implicit bias training for all village police officers on November 6th and November 7th at a cost of $500. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just for the record, it's Santiago Stewart. Dan
Okay.
Santiago Stewart.
Daniel Santiago Stewart. I stand corrected. Okay, I had a second. No further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Oh, I'm also supposed to note that Mr. Santiago Stewart is a village resident and currently instructs court officers from the New York State court system. And obviously, this will satisfy the recent Cornwall and Hudson Police Reform annual training requirement for our officers. All right, moving along, replacement of filter modules at Black Rock Filtration Plant. The filter modules at the Black Rock Filtration Plant, and Mike, correct me if I have anything wrong here, need to be replaced. Currently, the plant is operating at 1/2 of its normal capacity. In order to run the plant at full capacity, the filter modules must be replaced. Film Tech Corporation is the sole proprietor of the filter modules. So I'd like to make a motion authorizing the purchase of filter modules from Film Tech Corporation, the sole proprietor, at a cost not to exceed $43,200. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just one thing on that.
Yes, sir.
It's Film Tech Corporation. They also do business as DuPont Water. The company's been sold several times, so the final invoice may come in as DuPont Water.
Okay.
And Mike, what was the cost on that?
I believe it was $43,600.
Cost not to exceed $43,200.
All right, so the board is aware that would be something that may require a bid, but since it's a sole source,
Right.
then we don't have to follow the state bidding guidelines, so you'll be accepting this quote because it is a sole source. There's no other alternative.
In terms of, so the equipment that's there for which this replacement is being ordered, is the equipment itself also DuPont equipment or Film Tech, or is it just the
Yeah.
component that is?
Yeah, no, it was all manufactured by U.S. Filter back in 2001, and since then they've just changed hands several times.
So it's a purpose-built unit by this one company,
Correct.
it's not an interchangeable
Correct.
filtration system. If we
Correct.
wanted to not be beholden to a single source, in the future, we'd have to revamp the entire thing, correct?
Correct.
At a huge cost.
Correct.
Understood.
All right, I believe I had a second, right? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. The village is in the receipt of an application from the San Miguel program. For those of you who are not familiar with San Miguel Academy, it is a wonderful academy for disenfranchised kids in the city of Newburgh. I'm very familiar with it, having worked with it years ago. And Father Mark Connell, who's in charge of it, is a delightful person and does an amazing job there in Newburgh with these young men who they mentor, get them through a tough academic, scholastic curriculum, and then get them placed in college. Really do a wonderful job. They are the beneficiary, the recipient of a grant from New York State, and they would like to use Donahue Memorial Park. This is San Miguel Academy, San Miguel program. They are also a subsidiary of the Orange County Rowing Association. The Orange County Rowing Association provides rowing instruction for some of these young kids. Obviously, they use our slip down here at Donahue Memorial Park, and they'd like to hold on September 17th a press conference there, basically announcing that they received this grant, which is wonderful news. They expect somewhere between 20 adults and 60 children to attend. Normally, this is on the outer edges of what we like for one particular group down there to take over the park, but the children will be bused to the event and no more than 10 other vehicles are expected. So I would like to make a motion to approve the application from San Miguel Program to hold a press conference at Donahue Memorial Park on September 17th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And before I ask for a second, if they do end up using the slip, they do understand that it will also be subject to first come, first serve for any of our residents or visitors that want to use a slip to put in a jet ski or a boat or anything like that. They will work around that. So may I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay, moving right along, the Maple Avenue property. So if you've attended these meetings, you know that it's very much a priority for me and for this board to figure out a way to raise funds for infrastructure improvement, which is very critical to us when we're in charge of the water supply, not just for the village, but for the town as well. And there are a number of pipes and there are a number of pieces of infrastructure that were put in place in the 1950s. And I am old, but I was not born in the 50s, and these pipes are obviously the wrong size, they're not the right diameter, they're not the right material. So we're looking at doing something in a phased-in way. We're going to put together a comprehensive infrastructure improvement plan. To do this, one of the things that we looked at doing was possibly selling the Maple Avenue property. Now, the Maple Avenue property is a municipal building, which is at the end of Maple Avenue, not Maple Road up on the mountain, but Maple Avenue, which runs contiguous to the post office off of Hudson Street. We have been in contact with the residents there. Obviously, they are quite concerned. We're Cornwallites. We hate change, right? Anything that messes up the way things look right now. But we are in conversation with them. They understand that the village looked in 2007 to possibly sell the property. It did not happen. We revisited having an appraisal done recently. I have requested that a second appraisal be done now that the market has gone through the roof, and understanding that if we move on anything, we will insist that there be a single-family dwelling. It would not be sold in any other capacity for any type of commercial use. It's mixed use right now because it is a village building, but I've requested another appraisal be done. So I'm going to make a motion for this board, to do so. And so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. And then before I vote, I'll add one caveat. So, the resolution of the village board authorizing the mayor to obtain an additional appraisal for the village's Maple Avenue property. Whereas the village of Cornwall and Hudson owns real property in Maple Avenue within the village, and whereas the property is no longer needed for village purposes, and the village board is considering the sale of said property, and whereas the village board wishes to engage the services of an appraiser to determine the value of the property. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute an agreement to engage the services of an appraiser to determine the value of the Maple Avenue property for a cost not to exceed $2,800. Now, when you hear that number, you probably did what I did and just took a little step back and said, that sounds quite expensive. It is a piece of commercial property, and unfortunately, for an appraisal to be done on a piece of commercial property, the village clerk did some research into a number of different appraisers. This is the going rate. So we would not exceed that amount of money, but we feel like the value will be in getting a good appraisal on this, and then if the village does elect to sell that property, that money would then be reinvested back into the community. So, may I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, just to clarify, is it actually, it's not zoned in the central commercial district, right? It's SR1.
It's zoned in residential, but because it's a municipal building, and it's considered mixed use or commercial.
Okay, so at this point, essentially you can't.
It should revert back to residential.
Okay, and so with that, I would suggest that we not try to, well, let me rephrase. Getting a second, I'm totally in favor of the resolution before us. Getting a second opinion is great. Just the mention that you made of ensuring that it remain a single-family home. You know, there's other uses that are possible under SR1 or whatever the zoning code is in the residential zoning. So we wouldn't necessarily, by doing this, rule out the possibility that it be a two-family home, for instance, or
Understood.
some other relatively low-impact use in keeping with a lot of the commentary that we've heard from the public, of course. But just want to make sure we're not boxing ourselves into.
Understood, and as I've committed to the residents of that neighborhood, anything that we did going forward, we would bring them in and make sure that they were aware of it and discuss it, and we'd hold a public hearing before we did anything, so the community would be able to weigh in. Okay?
Well, thank you.
All right, any further, did I get a second? Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would just be careful on the commitments we make. I am curious about the zoning on the property because you're talking about two different policies. One might be a zoning issue. It could be zoned simply residential. I don't know what it is. And I accept that it's actually used essentially for commercial or municipal purposes. But if the board is seriously consider restricting it for a particular use, that would have to be done before it's purchased, because there are some attorney general opinions out there about restrictions that you place on the properties at the time of the sale. So that's something that we should look into. The second thing that I'd be curious about is where the funds to purchase the building came from. Because I understand the point. Let's say it came from the general fund, or maybe there was a special building account. And if it's sold, the funds may need to go back to that account rather than go to water infrastructure or something else. So that's just something to keep in mind
Understood.
and investigate now, so we don't have a misunderstanding when we get further down the road of where those funds have to go.
Mike, you know those funds, that was a DPW building before it was a water department building, correct?
No, as far as I know, it's always been a water.
It's always been water?
It's always been water.
Yeah, and the water fund's been. The water fund has always been used to maintain it and put additions on and whatnot.
But that's the point, that's all I'm saying.
Understood. Okay.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, so any further discussion? All in favor of the approval for this $2,800, no more than $2,800 appraisal? Aye? Aye. Okay, moving on. Okay, authorize an advertisement for a DPW facility part-time clerk position. So one of the things the board and the village clerk have been discussing has been that when we have employees that are, that go out on leave for a short period of time or extended period of time, we don't have a really good backup system in place where people can be replaced. We don't have a very good succession planning system, and so we're trying to rectify that. What we'd like to do is hire somebody in a part-time capacity to work down at the DPW building to assist the full-time employee we have down there. And then if the full-time employee, who handles most of the administrative work related to the planning board, the zoning board, the code enforcement officer, building inspector, and the DPW superintendent, more or less. Sometimes the water department, but mostly that's the job description. So we are looking to hire somebody on a part-time basis, pay them an hourly wage, and use them in an emergency capacity or when the person that we currently have there is unable to be in to fill in for that position. So I'd like to make a motion authorizing the village clerk to advertise for a part-time clerk in the DPW facility, and I'm going to ask for a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? I'm sorry, Jim?
The salary.
We don't have to do it right now, right?
At the time of appointment.
Okay, all right. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Michael or Assistant Chief Quinn, I'm gonna have you help me on this one. So, the fire department would like to surplus some of their extra or outdated or obsolete equipment. So upon the recommendation of Fire Chief Trainer, I'm gonna make a motion to declare the following equipment which is either expired, damaged, or obsolete surplus. Number one, numerous protective clothing items, coats, pants, helmets, gloves, protective hoods, and boots dating back to, egads, the 1990s. Number two, assortment of hose appliances, nozzles, and adapters dating back to the 1960s. Number three, medical equipment including stretchers, oxygen cylinders, backboards, et cetera, dating back to the 1990s. Number four, radio equipment, which includes chargers, hand mics, and mobile radios dating back to the 1980s. And finally, emergency warning devices, lights and sirens dating back to the 1990s. May I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, or Chief, Assistant Chief, anything you guys want to add?
No, the stuff is unusable to the department. It's old, it doesn't meet NFPA standards. The lights and sirens, modern vehicles don't have the electricity to power.
Gotcha. So you're going to get rid of the asbestos jackets? You've decided those are obsolete?
Rubber.
Rubber. All
Is
right.
there any resale value in any of those items? Like, do they get resold or do they go, what's the disposal?
So some of it is just plain old garbage. Others we will attempt to sell.
Okay.
But no big dollars.
All right, may I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. Surplus water department property, a carriage. Upon recommendation of Water Superintendent Trainer, I'd like to make a motion to declare a vintage carriage surplus and authorize the village clerk to receive bids for its purchase. Now, I'll caveat this by saying this. This carriage was found in one of our buildings. There's been some interest from some outside parties in possibly purchasing it. We did some research, because if this is something that belongs to the village or has any tie to this village, any type of historical, component to it, we certainly want to keep it here. We've not been able to find anything that can connect it to the village whatsoever. So what we'd like to do is to put it out for purchase bid. So, may I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this item? Counselor?
Do you know what the value is? Are you looking for a certain minimum bid?
That's why we want to sell.
We don't.
Nobody knows.
How old is it, Mike?
As far as we can tell from former employees, it predates our acquisition of the property out on Jackson Avenue that we now own. So it will be prior to 1960. It's an old carriage from maybe a horse and buggy. We don't have much information. It was in the barn when we took possession of the barn and the stone building.
Any further discussion or questions? May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on to other business. Oh, I'm sorry, what do I gotta do? Oh, I've gotta do a resolution for that. Oh, that one, okay. Yeah, now that's not on the agenda, correct? Okay. All right, so I guess I got to read this then. Okay, so a few minutes ago, I referenced the local waterfront revitalization plan. We're doing what we should be doing by trying to seek any available funding, and the state is got this consolidated funding application that we are resubmitting and reworking in concert with our engineers and with some folks in the village that are real helpful in regards to drafting grant applications. And so this is a resolution of the village board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson authorizing the mayor to submit a consolidated funding application to solicit requests for proposals and seek a lease agreement with the Palisades Interstate Park Commission in connection with the village's development of an LWRP, or a local waterfront revitalization plan. So whereas New York State has adopted the Waterfront Revitalization of Coastal Areas and Inland Waterways Act, which offers local governments the opportunity to participate in the state's coastal management program on a voluntary basis by preparing and adopting an LWRP. And whereas a LWRP consists of a planning document prepared by a community with the assistance of a planning professional and includes procedures established to implement the plan. And whereas the Village Board of Trustees wishes to afford itself the opportunity to enhance its waterfront areas by enacting an LWRP, including applying for funding through the completion of the state's consolidated funding application and by seeking access and/or use of waterfront property owned by the Palisades Interstate Park Commission for potential recreational use by village residents, or, quote, the project, close quote. And whereas the village board has determined that the development of the local waterfront revitalization plan is an action subject to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, quote, SEQRA, close quote. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the village board hereby determines that it will be the lead agency with respect to the review of the proposed project in accordance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and Part 617 of the regulations implementing SEQRA, since there are no other agencies that have the authority to approve the project, and it is further resolved that the village board preliminarily classifies the aforementioned action as an unlisted action under SEQRA, and it is further resolved that the mayor is authorized to pursue the development of a local waterfront revitalization plan by submitting a consolidated funding application to cover a portion of the cost for the project by authorizing and appropriating a minimum 25% local match not to exceed $70,000 for the project, should the project be awarded, by soliciting requests for proposals to engage the services of a professional consultant to assist with the project, to form an advisory committee including local professionals and village residents, utilizing existing municipal employees and utilizing existing village professional service providers for project-related costs, project management, capacity building, limited grant administration, and other services to pursue a lease or other agreement with the Palisades Interstate Park Commission and to execute such documents as may be necessary to accomplish these objectives. And let me just say that as I become more and more familiar with grant applications, if you're not willing to put skin in the game, you don't get them. So sometimes it's 15%, sometimes it's 25%, sometimes you qualify by services, meaning you have service providers or you're able to provide employees to do certain things, but without putting skin in the game, you're not going to be the recipient of these grants. So the most important thing here is that the village is willing to match 25% of what we would receive from New York State, not to exceed $70,000. So I'd like to propose that resolution. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the subject?
In this particular one, do we know if matching services can be contributed toward the 25% match?
You were at that meeting. I'm trying to think. I'm unsure.
I don't think there is. I
Yeah.
think we went over it. I don't think you can.
Yeah. You can on the pavilion project.
Right.
This one, I don't think so.
I don't think so, yeah.
Any other questions? Further discussion?
Actually, the property that's owned by the Palisades Interstate Park Commission, is that, which parcels along the waterfront is that? Is that our Donahue Memorial Park? Do we own that, or does,
No, we
because
own
it
that.
does say seeking access and/or use of waterfront property owned by PIPC.
Well, it's one of those things where we own it, but we don't. I mean, we own it, it's ours, but I mean, it's like things involving scenic Hudson too.
Yeah.
Well, I think the property that's south of.
It's south.
Yeah,
South of
it's
the
the
yacht.
property
South of
that's
the yacht.
south
South
of
of
the
the
yacht,
yacht.
correct, Bill,
Okay.
yes, that's the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are the engineers for the village going to prepare the grant application and/or the EAF for this, or am I?
The engineers for the village are working on this as we speak.
Okay.
They are heavily involved in it.
All right, so I assume then they'll prepare the EAF for the
Yes.
application.
And
Okay.
if there's any issues, Joe, I'll circle back to you, but they've taken this one on for us. All right, no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Gina, moving on to other business. Okay, I think I explained at the top, in answer to Mr. Moran's, points about the opt-out, that we are going to push off that decision until October, November, and, then afford people the opportunity for a permissive referendum if they are so inclined, so that we could get that on the ballot in March. And as I said before, I think this board is entirely open to hearing new information or having something change its mind. But as of right now, this board voted to opt out of both. All right, moving forward, draft policy of police body-worn cameras. I spoke about that at the top. I don't want to step on him because he's taking the bull by the horns on this one. The Donahue Farm Steering Committee kickoff meeting. Trustee Brain, I'm going to give that one to you.
It's tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock in this boardroom. The mayor's going to make a few remarks. The Scenic Hudson Conservation Easement Manager will make a few remarks. I will make a few remarks. And then there's an agenda which is quite simple. It's really introductions. This is the first time that everybody who's been appointed to the committee and to the historical committee will be in the same room together. We're going to ask that they self-organize and choose a chair and a secretary. We're going to, whatever time allows. I've sent out an agenda that I don't have in front of me, but it was fairly simple. It's introductions and make those appointments and then decide on next meeting schedule. In the agenda, it allows for maybe we look at what the goals are and actually start to talk about what the work streams are that are involved. But essentially, it's we're hoping that by sometime before the middle of next year or by the middle of next year that this committee will put forth an actionable plan to the village board that we can then assess and pass. And then as funds arise over time, we'll be able to put those into play, and produce policies relating to the use of the property and so on. So it's pretty exciting. There's 9 people on the appointed committee. There are 2 advisory members, former Mayor Coyne, who's here with us tonight, and Patricia Larkin. And then there's also a historical subcommittee that's going to be run by the village historian with some of the other people who expressed interest in being on the committee, looking at documenting the historical record of the property itself, cataloging any items of interest, and then if there is any decision to make use of the property for any kind of historical interpretation purpose, they would also be instrumental in helping configure that. So a lot of interest in it in the community. The guidance to the committee is to be extremely open and do public relations. I see we have a member of the press here tonight, and we're keeping the Cornwall Local and other outlets in the loop. And so it should be an exciting project, and with a lot of people with a lot of passion about it.
And I want to publicly thank Trustee Brain, who's really, taking this on as far as figuring out what needs to be done and putting together a selection committee, which was difficult to do as far as, making sure that we had all the equities covered in regards to that property. It is subject to open meetings, so tomorrow night will be the first one. As Trustee Brain pointed out, it'll begin at 6 p.m. sharp. Then they will, as he also pointed out, figure out what their meeting schedule will be. And again, it is subject to open meetings laws, and we hope that people show up to watch the committee work and see how government works at that level. It will be fascinating. One thing, and Dave, I will get with you after the meeting tomorrow night, because 2 things are critical, and not that I'm going to step on what the committee is going to come up with, but one is, now that it's village property and we own it, we've got to do something to make sure that we keep people out of there that aren't supposed to be there before those buildings get shored up and before it's a safe place to be. We'll need signage for that. And then number two, I looked at some drone footage that Trustee Brain showed me, and just looking at the damage to the roof, especially of the barn, I don't think we can go through another August monsoon season or go through another winter without more damage being done to that precious building. So we're gonna need to make those things priorities, so. All right, anything else from any other trustee in regards to the Steering and Planning Donahue Committee? All right, moving forward, the Water System Master Plan. You know, this is another one of my pet projects as far as getting with the water superintendent and looking at how we're going to improve crumbling infrastructure, which is happening all over the place, but especially for us in the water system, and figuring out what we're going to do with that. So we've enlisted our engineers, Pintagaro and Deutsch, the engineers of the village, to take a look at it. We've obviously brought on board the attorney for the village to take a look at things as well. We hope to be able to present something to the public shortly as far as what our plan is going forward in putting together this quote-unquote master plan. Okay, FMLA request, Family Medical Leave Act. I'm going to table this item for discussion in executive session when we conclude the public meeting, and move on to the Village of Cornwall and Hudson welcome sign. So one of the things I notice as I drive in and out of the village and head towards Rings Pond from Hudson Street is the beautiful sign. I know Mayor Coyne was intimately involved in having that sign erected. It was a artist in Sugarloaf who hand carved it, and it's beautiful. It's the backdrop of the mountains and the water and just a lush Hudson Valley region, and says Cornwall and Hudson on the front. But on the backside, as you're driving out, it's nothing but a brown, it's just a brown sign, just a brown facade. So I'm going to solicit folks that might have ideas. I have spoken to the artist, and he is willing to make a deal with us to carve the back of the sign, and maybe with something different, like maybe a scene of the gazebo similar to our village crest here, or maybe the bandstand, or something else that is uniquely iconic the village. And I don't know what we would put on it. Please come again. Thank you for visiting Cornwall and Hudson, or whatever it is. It's something that I'll probably put out in my mayor's message and solicit people to give their ideas on what they think would look good on that side. Then we'll remove the sign. We will take it to him in Sugarloaf. He will hand tool or hand carve the back side of it, and we'll reinstall it. So I'll then have to come to the board and ask for money to pay for this, but we'll cross that bridge when it gets there. But if anybody has ideas as far as what they think would look good on that side, something to be, something that would look nice as you leave the village, just as nice as it is when you come into the village, talk to any of the trustees, talk to me, talk to anybody, and give us some ideas. Anybody further discussion from the board? All right. Okay, moving along. Summer playground update. So, summer playground, geez, Gene, how many weeks now we had it? It's been going on for this is the fourth week. All right, so it goes until August 13th. We made a decision, obviously, it's been a very confusing time for schools and the kids. It's tough with obviously being still in the kind of the pandemic, moving into post-pandemic, but Delta variant phase in regard to what we're gonna do. We did have our kids masked on the inside, which was different than what the town camp did. The town camp was not having their kids masked on the inside. It was a decision they made after talking to the Orange County Department of Health and following CDC guidelines. We decided to be a little bit more restrictive because Cornwall Hudson Elementary School is a little tighter confines than Lee Road, where the town camp kids could spread out a little bit more. But we have been in contact with the Orange County Department of Health, and I think it was last Monday, we made the decision to go ahead and not restrict the kids and force them to wear a mask. Now, our camp counselors, if they're not vaccinated, have to wear a mask. If they are vaccinated, they do not. And we leave it up to parents' discretion if they want to continue to have their child wear a mask. But so far, I get calls from parents, and they are thrilled with the kids being back together. It's thrilling when you work here at Village Hall and you watch them walking to the pool once a week, to the town pool, and you hear the laughter, and they're being dropped off or being picked up. So it will go until August 13th. Friday, August the 13th will be the last day for summer camp. Summer playground. Any other trustee weigh in on that? Any further Okay. Next thing. Oh, and I'm sorry, I think we had 100 and, just under 130 register. We're averaging in the mid-90s. So, for daily, because obviously people take vacation, they come back and bring their kids for a week, then they go on vacation again. So we're averaging in the mid-90s, which is a good, solid number. I think a lot of people are ready to get their kids back into camp, so. All right, water,
If I may?
Yes, sir.
Also, the Cornwall Lions did generously donate $1,500 to both the village and the town for scholarships for families that, you know, if they had multiple children and it got a little pricey. That was the first year they did that, and I think it was very well received, from what I understand.
I can tell you personally from being in this room where a mother with 5 children was
Shaking her head, right?
was just absolutely beyond appreciative of what the Lions did. So thank you. It made some parents' lives. It really did, and the kids too. All right, Water Department personnel. I'm going to table this item again for executive session. And he's not here tonight, but somewhere down the road we'll do something. But you might have noticed some of the upgrades in regards to beautification at the bandstand. And I know that the Garden Club does an excellent job, and I know our DPW folks do an outstanding job as well. But I just want to personally point out Eugene Randazzo and Randazzo's Landscaping. The Randazzos are longtime village residents. And Eugene has done a lot of things for a number of mayors and boards in this, here in the village of Cornwall, Hudson, including having his folks cut and lay sod for us in front of Village Hall and do some beautification there and beautification around the parking lot, the municipal parking lot, which Dave promises me this year we are going to pave that parking lot so that what looks like a lunar landscape will finally be drivable again. So once we get all the streets paved, because I know that there's a lot of residents that are excited that their roads are gonna get paved this year, and we do it in rotation, and we do it on an as-need basis, but that'll be done. But I just want to say thank you publicly and for the record to Eugene Randazzo for a number of things. Anytime we've called him or asked him, and he's always been there to help, and he does a lot of things privately and quietly, doesn't seek any fame or fortune from it, doesn't take a nickel from us, and really gives back to the village. So I just want to publicly acknowledge him. Okay, as we're getting close to the end, and I'm not going to belabor this because I think it's something that we're going to need to go into further discussion down the road on. But there have been a number of residents that have raised a complaint with me, which I think is valid, and it is in regard to the scatological material left behind by the infamous Canadian geese. And I know that if you go down to Donahue Memorial Park and you go down there with your family, you go down there with your pet, with your dog, like I do sometimes, it is literally like walking through a minefield of scatological material. So I know the town went through this a number of years ago at Rings Pond, and there were solutions. Obviously, we don't want to be shooting Canadian geese, but there were some solutions in regards to certain Australian cattle dogs that'll chase the geese off, but then the geese come right back as soon as the dogs leave. There are some subsonic or ultrasonic auditory devices, apparently, like a dog whistle, but instead one that makes the geese veer off and not decide to settle there. There are some distracting mirrors and light devices. I don't know what that would look like. But one resident in particular has sent me a bunch of things which I am going through, and then I am going to probably seek to go back to the Riverfront Committee and see if they've got any ideas or guidance. I mean, nature's nature sometimes, and I get it, but there are people that like to go down there and do yoga in the morning. There are people that like to go down there and sit, and it really is, it's a health hazard. So, I mean, I know we're not going to beat the dead geese tonight, but is there anything that you guys want to add? I mean, I know we've been through this with the town, and I don't know what the ultimate solution was. I don't know if they found any success, but anyhow.
Dome it.
Dome it?
Dome it.
Just put a big dome over it. Okay, all right, let me, now we're into the FYI for your information. Music and Movies on the Hudson are going to take place in a combined capacity on August 7th, because as you know, we had the rain out last week when Superman was supposed to be played on Movies for the Hudson, that Dominic Cordisco and Michael Traynor do an excellent job with the Movies on the Hudson crew down at the riverfront. So as I understand it, Michael, the concert will be down at the gazebo on the north end, and then people that want to stay can then move down to the south end, where we typically send up by the yacht club, in the little beach area there, set up the movies, and then watch a movie. And I'm assuming it's gonna be Superman again, correct? Correct. All right. Okay, the last combined business meeting and work session date, and I apologize why this meeting went so long, but obviously we had 3 public hearings, and in July and August, we tend to combine our work session, which is the second Monday of every month, and the business meeting, which is the third Monday of every month, into one meeting. We're doing that one more time. That will be in August. It'll be August 16th, and then once September comes around, we will go back to our 2 meetings per month. Okay? And Movies on the Hudson will also take place again, Mike, on August 21st. Do we have a movie title?
We do. It's the movie Yesterday that was recently released a couple of years ago about the Beatles. Apparently.
Oh.
Oh, good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually John Joy is going to have a little bit of a Beatles tribute concert before the movie.
Excellent.
Very nice.
Outstanding. All right, and with that, at 8:41 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I am going to conclude that part of the meeting and move toward the end and to the second public comment session. Does anybody have any public comment? If you do, we just ask that you step back up to the microphone, state your name for the record and your home, your address, please.
Greg Roby, 95 Middle Springs Road. Serendipitously, I served on the 21st Century Committee 20 years ago with the new high school, the one that got turned down. And when I sat through the second committee, the one that did end up building the new high school, I want you to know, and I also worked at Donahue at Camp Homestead for a year. And I developed an environmental program for there. So I know that property, I know the deeds, I know the constraints of scenic Hudson. You're sitting on a potential site for a new elementary school because with the laws that are in place, aspirational laws that the state have in place, the Cornwall and Hudson building is POW, as is Willow. We are going to need new elementary schools to meet the new energy requirements. Underneath Donahue Park, it's all gravel. You have Mountain Creek running through. That's your source of water for for geothermal, for heating and cooling the school. So as you move forward with this, it's working, it's a possibility. I talked with Ed Moulton at the time, because as we move forward to our second new high school, if we ever get there as a community demographically, we will have 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, before we get to our second full high school. And it would be one out there in West Cornwall. We've got the Lee Road, one potentially in the village, and then probably one out towards Highland Mills. So just that's the school district does not think ahead, but I had time twiddling my thumbs while the second committee was going through, and it is something we can do as a community to really look forward, and that property would be an amazing place for an elementary school. And with the energy costs of both Cornwall and Hudson and Willow Avenue, if you took them down, would pay for a new school.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Roby. We do have to deal with covenants that are on that property. They are protected, that if it's
School district has
eminent domain,
so it's up to the community.
Right.
Absolutely, and this community, I understand
you're
that.
thinking outside the box is what you're telling me. I like it.
We could have had a new elementary school and a new high school at the same time if the community had it.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir.
Same price.
Mr. Moran.
I'm back. Nicholas Moran, 187 Mountain Road. I was here going to talk about the climate crisis. I'm very concerned about all the flooding and wildfires happening. And so on that point, I see that the HVAC, is being replaced in the police department. Definitely needed to happen, but I was hoping that we could move as a community towards air source heat pumps, geothermal, and electrifying the village. I hope to provide a much more comprehensive view in September before the board on what things we could do as a community to really reduce our impact on the environment and be a sustainable, be a leader in the community, and where people look to us for guidance on how to really make all this stuff work sensibly. And I appreciate the comments on geothermal that Mr. Roby made, and there's a proposal I have on geothermal too for the future.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, just also, and I should have mentioned this sooner, but I did ask Mr. Moran, and he graciously accepted to be a climate advisor to the board. And the best place to get stuff done like this is to do it at a work session. And, all right, look, you're getting applause already. But he is going to present at the September work session, he's going to present to the board, and one of the first things that we're looking at and exploring are LED lighting. And I know there's people on both sides of that issue, but I just think it'd be a good opportunity to get educated on that, and then some other things that we share an affinity for, like trees and clean air and things like that. So, Nicholas, I appreciate that. Anybody else in public comment?
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Coyne.
Good evening. I have 3 comments. First is in regard to the consolidated funding application. It's going to be placed very shortly, and Ronald Liebert is the person who has in the past done the majority of the work. I did some work on it last time, but I think we're in a good spot, a good place to succeed this time. I think we might have succeeded last year, but for COVID. So I applaud Rana for her work. And the local waterfront revitalization plan is really just that, a plan for what else might happen. So we won't be seeing necessarily, if we're fortunate in getting it, some projects come out of it. There'll be planning for projects that would come out of it. The second comment is in regard to BlackRock. Mike's report made reference to it. It really should be congratulations to Mike and to the water department. BlackRock has been a difficult water source for us, but it's really a turning point. We had our previous engineer could not do the job, so I felt that we needed to file a lawsuit, and we did that. Deputy Mayor Kane did a lot of work on that. But it also led to hiring Pintangaro and Deutsch. And we were successful with our lawsuit. And we now have an engineer that has been extremely helpful to all departments, is helping with the CFA, as been noted before. And finally, my third comment is in regard to Storm King Engine's barbecue. And I just want to congratulate Mike and Charlie and the rest of the department. It's a wonderful day, and it really built workplace community. His idea of bringing all the village employees to that barbecue was wonderful, and I enjoyed it, and I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anybody else in the public comment section? No. All right, hearing none, I am going to go around the board, and I'm going to start with Trustee Brain.
Although this year I was unfortunately unable to attend it, I know that the Storm King Engine Company just had its Fireman's Fair, which is back on after a year's hiatus, and I would give some of my time. I know that some of the fireworks left over seem to have been safely disposed of last night at about 9:30 or 10 o'clock. But if Mike, or you or Charlie would like to say anything about the attendance, and I know there's a new goldfish in my house.
We have 2.
I'll just say that the community was very supportive. They all seemed to enjoy it. They were happy to have it back. We had we added a little bit of entertainment and whatnot. COVID has had an effect on everything. It's had an effect on the labor pool for the employees from the ride companies, had an effect on maintenance of rides. There were certain rides that couldn't be there because they were waiting on maintenance parts to come from Europe and whatnot. So the effects of COVID is still out there, but it was nice to get back to some sort of normalcy.
And Brendan mentioned the inspection dinner. I did attend that, and that was a great evening, and it was good to see recognition bestowed on the members of the engine company, and thank you for the invitation, appreciate it. And thank you for the lobsters that I took with me to the dinner I was going to afterwards, which I'm told they were eaten for lunch the next day. That's it from me, as far as I can recall.
All right, trustee Gaylord.
No, I just think that, honestly, it's all good to be up here, not all spaced out, having, the public present and, the fire, the fair was an attribute to what's going on, things opening up, and, hopefully next year we'll be able to have the big celebration down at the waterfront. And, again, it's just good to see things opening up as a community and, everything going in the right direction.
All right, thank you. Trustee Cornwright.
I was fortunate to be able to attend the fair, and it was well attended on the night I went, and thank God they had good weather, and also the installation dinner was very successful. Great place to have it down at the river. Not having to have it in a hall somewhere was really nice. I think it was a good idea.
Great. Deputy Mayor Kane.
Yeah, just to reiterate in regard to the installment dinner, Mike, excellent choice. I hope you guys do it there again. It was great to recognize the young firefighters too, because afterwards I spoke to them and I just said, hey, you're gonna be replacing Mike sooner or later, and we need you, and encourage your friends, whoever can join, to join. So it was just that was an outstanding evening. So thank you on that score. Fireman's Fair was down for that too. That was excellent. I love the idea of having the band there. That was very, very good. So we appreciate that. And to reiterate what the mayor had said before in regard to Eugene Randazzo, I think sometimes that when you drive through the village, sometimes you see what the floral displays and stuff like that, and you don't appreciate who does it. You automatically think someone from the village, like the DPW has done it, and they've maybe prepped the area, but even near the parking lot, the DPW prepped the area, and Eugene Randazzo's his company came out and did the planting. So kudos to him, and thank him once again.
I don't think I could say it any better than these four trustees have already said. I'll just say that one of the things that I get the most enormous pride out of is when a resident calls me about an issue, I typically try not to meet him here. I try to say, give me your address and I'll be there, and I go to talk to him. And whatever the issue is, they never let me leave without sending kudos to the fire department, to Kovac, to the DPW, to the water department, to our police officers, and they each have a vignette or an anecdote where it was 2 o'clock in the morning and such happened, or, and I called in an emergency and then they showed up. I truly appreciate that. That really, I beam with pride when that happens, because getting to know you folks and seeing what you guys do on a daily basis, truly appreciate it. And with that, I am going to make a motion to close the public meeting so that we may go into executive session. May I have a second?
No, if you're gonna,
Oh, no, sorry, can't.
if you're going into executive,
I always get lectured.
just make a motion to go into executive session.
To address two items,
But-
the FM.
But I don't have to close the public meeting?
No, we come out of executive and then you close.
And then
If
we
you're
close.
not,
We just tell people to beat it, and that's how it goes. I
if you're-
get it.
if you're
I
not gonna
see how
take
this
it, if you're not gonna take any action.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to go into executive session. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
To address,
I'm sorry.
To address two topics on the FMLA request and water department personnel. That's it.
Okay, so I am going to make a motion to go into executive session to address an issue related to FMLA and a member of the water department. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thanks for coming, everybody. Yeah.
That's all right. Mine, you could have just went with it.
My parliamentary procedures are so out of whack here.
And then,
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry.
Now, technically,
I don't know.
He's gotta shut it off.
Yeah, Gene has to shut that down before we go to that.
technically, our public session is still unused.
Okay, but Bill, that'll pick you up too.
Just, our public session is still open, technically, Close it after executive.
Just buy the whole mannequin.
If for some
easier
reason
that way.
Somebody wanted to linger and say,
You'll call me Bob again.
I don't know, because you don't have public,
There's no more
public
public
comment is already
after.
closed, so I don't think you can.
It's not like I never.
Bill was asking if, technically, since we don't close the public meeting until after we come out of executive session, what if somebody lingers and has another item?
You could, because what happens is, well, they could make a comment, but we can, if we come out of executive session and we're gonna pass a resolution, then typically what we try to say is, we let people know we may be moving on something pursuant to the executive session.
Hey, listen,
Yeah.
I had no idea